All right, guys, welcome back to the Art and Business of Writing, where I'm joined by a special guest today. But first, what is it like to get inside the head of an Olympic gold medalist, to know what he knows, and turn the knowledge and experience into a powerful story that unlocks the secrets of genuine greatness at the same time that it pulls us in and touches our hearts? That's the unique gift of storyteller and New York Times bestselling author John David Mann, co-author of The Go-Giver, The Go-Giver Leader, and now his latest parable, The Recipe, a story of loss, love, and the ingredients of greatness, written together with 8-time culinary Olympian chef Charles Carroll. The Recipe is a heartbreak and redemption, a meditation on great food and secrets of the kitchen, and the life manual all wrapped together into one compelling, unput-downable story. Former heavyweight champion George Foreman has declared it an instant classic. Robin Sharma, best-selling author of The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, called it a little story about big ideas and noble truths. Michael Port, the television actor and best-selling author of The Think Big Manifesto, calls it a blueprint for transcending limitation and living a big life, and adds the recipe will speak directly to your heart and help you find a way. My guest today is the book's co-author, John David Mann. John, welcome to the Art and Business of Writing again.
It's so great to be back here. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, so good to talk to you again. It's funny because, on Facebook, every time someone has a book recommendation, hey, what book do you recommend that I read? I always recommend The Go-Giver. It is like tops of my list. It's one of my all-time favorite books.
That's great to hear. Thank you much. You made my day there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's get started. So you're known for writing about business and especially the Go-Giver books with Bob Berg. So why write a story about cooking?
So, it's that's a good question. How did I get here? The Go-Giver went out in 2008. In 2009, I got a Facebook message from this guy I'd never met in Houston, who was a chef at a country club there. Turns out it's the third busiest country club in the nation. This massive, very high-end country club, and Chef Carroll is the executive chef of the whole place. So he manages 70 employees in 3 kitchens and 5 restaurants. They put out 800 banquet events a month. It's just insane. And he said he was using the Go-Giver as a training tool with his team. And I thought, oh, that's kind of unusual. You see executive chefs on TV, and you get this popular image of the chef who screams and yells and throws food on the floor and makes all the sous chefs cry.
Right.
And Chef Charles is like the opposite of that. I actually went out there and visited. He invited me out to talk about the Go-Giver and visit his place, which I did. I went out and visited, and it's more like a dojo or something. He's got an incredible thing going there where he's really developing these young people, not just creating excellence in the kitchen that they're serving to their high-paying guests, but he's really creating an experience for these people. It's like a school of mentorship at a very high level. And while I was there, he told me he had this idea for a story, and it was a story about a young boy who's lost his father, whose life is in trouble, kind of spiraling the drain and going down in flames, and who crosses paths with this crusty old diner chef, and who gets him to work for him in the kitchen. And as he learns the tricks of the trade in the kitchen, he also learns about life. It's kind of like Karate Kid meets Master Chef. So, I hear this sentence, hey, I've got a great idea for a story. I think I've heard that opening sentence, 1,000 times, and it doesn't typically lead anywhere. But I was really intrigued with this idea. I love food. I love to cook. My wife and I love to cook together. And there's, something creative about cooking, as there is about writing, as there is about music, which was my first profession, my first career, as there is about living. There's something creative about the art of living. And I loved the idea of combining a book about personal growth with lessons in the kitchen. It just really spoke to my soul. So we did it. It took us 8 years to, kind of get our calendars meshed and make a hole in the day where we could do it. But we did it, and here it is. I'm really excited about it. It's something different for me.
Yeah, no doubt. Going from that to the kitchen has to be very different. Now, you said something really intriguing. You said, people always come up to you, with I've got this great story idea. How do you decide who you're going to co-author with, and how did you come to work with Chef Grahl on this particular book?
So those are two different questions, and I'm going to treat them both. The first is a tricky one. How do you decide? Because in the early days when I was first starting out as a writer, I would, write anything. I would stand on the street corner with a sign saying, "I will write for food." But after the Go-Giver came out and I started to have more success as a writer, I've had a lot of books, a lot of book proposals, a lot of projects, a lot of ideas that have kind of crossed my path. And so how do I decide? It's really two things, and it stems from this. To me, every book is two things at once. It's a book, and as such, it's a vehicle through which I hope to reach people that I would never have known otherwise, to reach through this portal of the book and touch their lives and hopefully make a difference and even change the world. It's like a book is like a doorway for me to put something out in the world that is meaningful. But it's also a business. Every book is also a business. It has to work financially for me because it's my livelihood. And I write books not just to put bread on the table, but also to build retirement. This is my financial life for me and my family. So I look at a book in two ways. A potential book project. Number one, is it a project that really speaks to my soul? Is it something I can fall in love with? You started out in that great introduction. You said, getting inside the mind of an Olympic chef or a gold medalist. Charles Issago, he won his first gold medal at age 24, and he's won many since. I've also, as you know, I've done books with a Navy SEAL sniper. I've done books with business leaders. I've done books with men and with women. I've done books. I've co-written books with a lot of different kinds of people in different experience sets. Every one of those is kind of like taking a role in a film. Like if I'm going to play a bio picture of some famous person, it's like you have to step inside the skin of that person and be that person. I'll sit down with someone like Charles. I might sit down on the phone with him and we might talk for an hour, and I'll record that conversation, I'll transcribe it, and I'll have his words. But that's not enough for a book. For a book, I have to write pages of ideas, dialogue, situations. I have to come up with stuff from whole cloth, from scratch, that Brandon the sniper never told me, or that Bob the business person never told me, or that Charles the chef never told me. I have to just come up with it. It's like channeling. So it's like acting. For that to work, for that to be a viable book, a book that really connects with people, I have to feel it. I have to be in love with this story, with this idea. The other side of it is I have to think it's going to work as a business financially. Usually what that means is that my co-author has to have a platform, has to have the capacity to go out there and market that book. Because it's not what I do. I write books. I don't market books. And so my Navy SEAL sniper friend Brandon runs a media business, and he's on TV a lot, and he's great at marketing things. My buddy Bob Berg, with whom I've co-written all the Go-Giver books. We have another one coming out next year, which we just finished writing the manuscript. Bob is masterful at getting on social media, at getting out on interviews, at getting out in front of people, at marketing the books. We're going to circle back to that because there's an irony about that in this story. But that's kind of the basis of my judgment. A, is it a book that really speaks to me, to my soul? Can I fall in love with this story? And B, do I think it's going to work? Do I think there's a market for it, and that we're going to be able to reach that market? And for me, when Chef Charles wrote, even before I visited, when he wrote me that he actually wrote me that he had an idea for a book, something about it was like a spark. It's like falling in love at first sight. I just said, I got to write that book. Someday I got to write that book. It took almost a decade, but we got it done.
Wow, dude, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm scribbling down so many really great notes just from what you're saying. It's so true, though. I mean, books are great to write, but yeah, it's the writer's livelihood. It's your business, so you have to treat writing like a business. I'm glad that you said that. That's very, very vital. Because I know a lot of writers are like that. They understand the writing portion. I just want to write good books. But it's the other side where I've got to make money writing good books too. to take care of myself.
And, ultimately, those there's sort of two sides of a coin. They ultimately really boil down to the same thing in the big picture, which is this. If I can write a wonderful book, every book I've ever written, by the way, Chris, every book I've published, I feel is a success to me as a book. It's a success as a book to me. But very few of them have been successes as businesses. Very few. If a book is a beautiful book that really reaches somebody, but it only reaches about 20 people, I'm glad it reached those 20 people. But it's not satisfying for me. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to reach 20 people. I can reach them in my living room by having a conversation. I'm here to reach 1 million people. I want to touch a lot of lives. If a book doesn't get into 50,000 people's hands, then I feel like I haven't been a good steward of my time on this planet. That's not what I was put here to do, to write something for 20 people. I was put here to write things that would touch millions of lives. That's my purpose. So yeah, the business is simply, it's like we say in The Go-Giver, that money is really a reflection of value. It's an echo of value. It's the thunder to value's lightning. Well, the book is the lightning, is the value. But there's got to be some thunder. It's got to come back financially, which is also symptomatic of its impact in the world.
Wow, powerful stuff there. I love it all. Love it all. Now, in this book, the descriptions of cooking are so vivid and detailed. Did you have to go learn how to cook all these dishes yourself while you were writing?
I did, actually. I did. Yeah, pretty much. It's, as I said, Chef Charles, it was his idea. He'd already written a draft of which, pieces of which we used, pieces of which we didn't use. It's like any idea. And but there was a lot to be fleshed out. We really only had kind of a setup. And in the course of the book, there's a lot of talk about how to cut an onion, how to cut a carrot, how to peel a vegetable, how to put something in the pan so that you get the right sear. A lot of details about technique. And they all have the corollaries in terms of life, what they mean in life. And to write those, I had to do them all. So my wife was delighted because we both love to cook, but I learned so much about cooking and about care of a knife and chopping and everything. It was great. So I spent a lot of days where I would be at my desk writing and say, hang on, and I'd go off and I'd come back after an hour in the kitchen trying something out and write some more. It was a blast.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. We can get you a show on the Food Network next.
Yeah. We're gonna have on our website, when the book comes out, we're gonna have on our website videos of Chef Charles demonstrating the recipes in the book.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'd love to see your outtakes too.
Yeah. Well, maybe that might happen too. We're going to record in a few weeks, so we'll see.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, you touched on something about you going out and actually cutting the vegetables and learning how to make the food and experimenting in the kitchen. What's the value of research on good, authentic writing?
Boy, that's a great question. The value of research. One thing about writing that's so interesting is that formulas typically don't work. Writers are so varied and so unique and so different in terms of their patterns, their schedules, what works for them. Some people are outliners, some people are not. John Irving gets the last sentence in his book figured out before anything else, and then writes the book backwards in his head. So that also applies to research. Some writers hate to research. Some writers, love research. They live for it. They relish it. William Goldman, who wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, he also wrote The Princess Bride. He also wrote All the President's Men. He also wrote Misery. I mean, he is like the grand old A-list writer of Hollywood. He wrote a novel called Marathon Man, which later became the movie Marathon Man. So he was very successful both as a novelist and a screenwriter. When he found the Butch Cassidy material, when he stumbled upon this historical bit of sort of trivia about these two characters, because they were real, right? Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid were real people. When he found out who they were and a little bit about them, he thought, this is gold. This would make a career. This stuff is gold. And he says he instantly knew that he couldn't write a novel. It was going to have to be a screenplay. And he said, the reason I couldn't write a novel was that I don't really like horses. I didn't really want to have to learn about horses, how you ride them, how you take care of them. He said, if I was going to write a novel about these two, I was going to have to write about horses. I didn't want to write about horses. I'd rather write a screenplay and let the director worry about that. So, of course, he wrote it, and it made his career. It was an amazing film. But for me, for example, research is critical, but not always literally. I've written now 4 books with Brandon Webb, my Navy SEAL sniper friend. He's a former Navy SEAL sniper. Now he's a businessman. But the first 3 were memoirs. The first was his memoir. The second was a memoir of 8 SEALs he's known, all of whom have died, called Among Heroes. The third was a memoir, essentially, of 4 different special operations snipers: a Navy SEAL, a Marine sniper, an Army Ranger, and a Canadian infantryman. And they're battle scenes, and they're war, they're books about war. They're books about military, the finest operators in our military. I have never been in the military. I did not go out on the range and shoot with Brandon. I did not go out and look at his gun collection. I didn't get my fingers in the reality of the book. What I did do was I spent dozens of hours talking to these guys, and that was my research, and that was critical. I also did a ton of research online, so there's a lot historical in there, but I think research is critical in terms of human engagement. Here's the thing. Every book is a story, and every story is about human beings. There are details that matter, and you need to get those right for the authenticity of the book, more so in a detailed memoir than in something like a parable, which is intentionally vague on details because it's a short story that's meant to be like a fable. But even there, there will be details. In The Go-Giver, the first thing I wrote in that, Bob had written some sketches and some ideas, and he had like a couple of dozen pages of starting places. But when he turned it over to me, the first thing I wrote was this scene with a woman named Deborah Davenport, in which she gives this whole little riff on every sales closing method from A to Z. And she goes through 26 closing methods that start with A and B and C and D and E and F. That's like sales technical jargon. That had to be there. That's the spice of the book. That makes the book feel real, and it's interesting. So research is important, but the lion's share of research is about human experience. That's what matters to me. What did that feel like? What does it feel like to look at a man through your scope and know that you can move your finger a quarter of an inch and his life is over? You're going to stop his beating heart. Oh my God, what does that feel like? What does that responsibility feel like? What does the aftermath of that feel like? Who were you as a kid when you were 8? What made you want to go into this life? That's to me what matters. And for that, I think research into what other human beings feel and experience, that's crucial. But then again, all of life is research if you're observing.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. But no, I love how your thought process is just asking all the deep questions, just trying to experience a person's life, like you said, putting on their skin and experiencing their life through their eyes.
Yes, very much.
Now, okay, so, now I understand with this one, not only did you write this one, but you also published it yourself, which is a first for you. Why are you going about it this way?
Yeah, well, there's kind of 2 answers to that. So it's, earlier I said that I partner. My business model, which I kind of stumbled into, but it's worked out well for me. My business model is that I partner up with someone who has a great marketing platform, be it Bob Berg, my friend Brandon Webb, the futurist Daniel Burris, or whoever. And I do the writing, they do the marketing. That's my deal. That's how it works. So that was what I was going to do. Chef Charles is going to promote the book, and I'm going to write the book, and we're going to go get it published. When we finished the manuscript, my agent told me, my literary agent, read the manuscript and said, "This is the best thing you've ever written. This is the best your writing has ever been." She was so excited. She took it to New York. Let the bidding war begin. The bidding war did not begin. 40 publishers looked at it. All of them liked it. Some of them loved it. They were saying things like, this moved me to tears. This is so powerful. This is an incredible story. All of the learning lessons are so beautifully told. They really work so well. The descriptions of the food are so vivid I can taste them. They all passed. Every single one. No takers. So here I am. I've published 24 books. Some of them have been New York Times bestsellers. The Go-Giver, as you know, is like a worldwide classic. I can't get a book published. I can't get my book published in New York. Nobody would take it. They said things like, I love this book, but it doesn't fit our category. It doesn't fit our catalog. It's not the kind of book we publish. And some of them said, we're not quite sure what kind of book it is. We're not sure if it's like, does it go in cooking? Does it go in personal development? Does it go in young adult? Does it go in fiction? We're not. And here's what I learned. Publishers, like movie producers, are risk averse. They want to know exactly what shelf in Barnes & Noble this book is going to sit on before they buy the rights to it and say, yes, we'll publish it. And this didn't fit their paradigm. It just didn't fit. Now, Charles and I both believed, here's what we believed, and we still believe right now, and I hope this is true. We believe that there are a ton of people out there who are really into personal growth and personal development and leadership. And there are another ton of people out there who are foodies, who are really into food and learning about cool new things in the kitchen and love to watch Food Network and so forth. And we believe those two groups, there's a ton of overlap. There's a lot of people who fit both categories. That's who this book is for, we think, but we don't know. So when they all turned us down, over 40 rejections, I decided, well, we could either just put the book on the shelf, put the manuscript on the shelf, let it gather dust and say, oh, well, or do it ourselves. So I decided to do it myself. This isn't what I do. This is not my business model, but it is now. So I started a publishing company to publish this title. Maybe we'll publish others, who knows, and decided to do it, at the top of the game as professionals all the way. It's going to be hardcover, audiobook, ebook. It's all coming out mid-October. And we hope that this will work. And you know what? It's a cliffhanger. Will it work? Will the book be a hit, or will it sink without a ripple? We have no idea. We'll find out.
So when you found out, when you and Chef Charles found out that you went through 40 publishers with no dice, was he discouraged? Like, what was he expecting? Were his expectations kind of crushed, or how'd you coach him through that? Give me the scenario. Show me the conversation.
Yeah, it's like, well, first of all, yes, we were both crushed. We were both, first of all, surprised, because we both really thought the bidding war would begin. We thought this thing would be, we thought publishers would be going back and forth, raising the stakes, and eager to get their hands on it. And we thought it would be snapped up and made into a made for TV movie or a family film or what have you. We thought we had a really hot property in our hands, and so we were, first of all, shocked, and second of all, crushed. Absolutely disappointed. You better believe it. But here's the beautiful thing: Charles, like myself, is an entrepreneur. He has been all his life. We're both entrepreneurs at heart. So we both, pretty much had the same response, which was, really? Nobody's going to publish it? Okay, what's next? What do we do now? And, roll up our sleeves. Let's figure this out. Because we are not going to say never. We are not going to quit until either the wall has broken down or our foreheads are too bloody to keep going.
Yeah, but that's the true mantra. They always say, entrepreneurs solve problems, and that's what you did. You found you had a problem, and you figured out, well, we're going to do something about this. But I guess it's also, I'm not going to say it's like an indictment on the publishing industry, but it just shows that with the wide variety and range of authors, that self-publishing really is a strong model for people to pursue in order to get their books out.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation because it's a several edge situation. You can do today things that you absolutely could not have done 10 years ago, and you certainly couldn't have done 20 years ago. Digital technology has grown in sophistication and accessibility to the point where, I mean, I was actually surprised to find when I decided we're going to self-publish this, I assumed that meant, okay, it'll have to come out in paperback. I hate the idea, and this is I'm exposing myself here. You're getting to see kind of my own snobbery here. I hate the idea of publishing a book right to paperback. To me, it feels like putting out a movie and it goes straight to video without ever showing up in the theaters. To me, a hardcover is like showing up in theaters for a feature film. You put out a book as a hardcover, and then a year later it goes to paperback, and that's awesome. And then maybe it goes to trade paperback after that. I mean, it goes to mass market paperback after that. The Go-Giver has never gone out of hardcover. It's still in hardcover 10 years later, which is really awesome. I assumed that if we're going to self-publish, that means, well, I can't go produce hardcovers. It's way too expensive, and it seems impossible, and I don't have, tens of thousands to just throw into that of dollars. Much to my surprise, no. Self-publishing has grown so sophisticated that we're going to put this thing out as a hardcover title, audiobook, and ebook all at the same time, mid-October, and then we'll come out with a paperback edition probably 6 months later. And you can do as an individual from your desktop things that you could never do before. Unfortunately, what that also means is that a lot more people are doing that, and it does it dilute the quality of the market? It does. It means that there's a lot of books that are hitting the shelves that, sad to say, just aren't at anywhere near the same level of professionalism as traditionally published books. They may be full of typos and not laid out well, not edited well, and they don't have great covers, and it hurts me to see it because there are people with just wonderful ideas that come out in graphic formats where it doesn't realize the potential that it has. So what we wanted to do is our goal was to put out a book that you couldn't tell it was self-published. That it looks in every way it's a book straight out of St. Martin's or Penguin Random House or Harper Business or whatever.
No, dude. It's amazing at how sophisticated it is. I mean, I order books from different manufacturers just because I want to do quality testing every so often. And you can get hardcovers, you can get them matched, you can get them spot UV'd, you can get them with dust jackets. I mean, You can look like everybody else in Barnes and Noble from your own home if you find the right outfit to do the printing for you.
Right.
So it's fantastic. Now, what's been the single biggest challenge you found in being your own publisher?
Oh, that's easy. Self-organization. I don't have time to do this. I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur because I've been an entrepreneur in the past, prior to my writing career. And, typically what I understand as the entrepreneurial life is you throw your heart into it. You're thinking about your new business 24 hours a day. You just throw everything you've got. And I can't do that. I have a very busy writing schedule. I'm working on 4 different writing projects right now. I am already way over busy. So I could not afford the time. I didn't have the budget, and especially I couldn't afford the focus, the dilution of focus to get in the way of writing. So what that meant was I couldn't just throw myself at this 24 hours a day. I couldn't do everything. I had to figure out where can I put minimum effort or minimum time, or where can I put my energy and focus in budgeted, parcel it out in ways that are going to have the maximum effect. I had to really pick and choose my battles. And that's been the biggest challenge. How can I be the most effective? How can I leverage my time and effort in ways that will have the most impact on the ultimate fate of this book in the marketplace?
Now, what's been your greatest reward or the biggest high of being your own publisher?
Wow. I think I might have answered that question differently a month ago. I think then I would have said, seeing it all come together, having the book in my hands, knowing that I did this, and just sort of the satisfaction of watching the machinery come together. But, I spoke about parceling time and focus and finding the most effective ways to spend energy. One of the things that I did, and I kind of stumbled into this strategy, was to create a reading group. And my original idea was came from a guy named Tim Grahl, who wrote a book that I'm following, sort of like my Bible of self-publishing, or a book promotion rather. He wrote a book called Book Launch Blueprint, which is a simple and brilliant book, and I'm using that book among several other key resources. And Tim says one of the things that he did in his strategy was to get a circle of readers to read the book ahead of time, pick out their favorite quotes from the book and give them to you, and then you turn those quotes into little graphic quotes, mix them up, match them with an image, and make a little pre-made social media clickable post and put them up on a website and invite people to just share these pre-made posts. I love that idea. Then from an author buddy of mine, Harry Bingham, a mystery author in England, he put out a little newsletter to his closest circle of readers and said, I'd like you guys to offer you guys an advanced copy of the book, if you'll read a digital copy, if you'll agree to put up a reader comment on Amazon. Reader comments on Amazon are really valuable. They're more valuable than marketing dollars, because when a book first comes out, when readers happen to come across it on Amazon, if they see it's got like 5 reader reviews, they go, oh, I guess no one has ever heard of this book, and they move on. They see that it has 50 reader reviews, they go, whoa, how did I not know about this book? It's just how people are. It's kind of like people see a busy restaurant, a restaurant that's full, and they assume the food is good. They see a restaurant that's almost empty, and they assume it's probably not that good. If you want your book to look like it has an audience, it has to have an audience. And the easiest way to do that is to get more reader reviews on Amazon. So I thought, this is an awesome idea. I'll create this reader group, and I'll ask them to give me their favorite quotes from the book and to leave a reader review on Amazon when the book comes out in October. So I thought, maybe I'll get couple dozen, maybe 20, 30, 40 people. So far, I've got 150.
Whoa.
The reader group has probably been my most rewarding experience so far. I'm still 2 months away from the book's launch, and I got people creating a reading group on Facebook, tweeting about the book, going back and forth about their favorite passages. It's just been so cool to see this reader group kind of spring to life, and I think that's going to help create a bedrock of buzz for the book when it comes out. That'll be something that, money couldn't buy. If I'd had a $100,000 marketing budget and I spent it on media buys and advertising space and a PR person to set me up with television interviews or whatever, it wouldn't buy the kind of genuine grassroots enthusiasm from these 150 people. So this has been a wonderful discovery and incredibly gratifying.
Wow, that's so cool that you've had the chance to get your hands into that and see the marketing side and the really kind of the indie lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Now let's talk about the book a little bit. It's called The Recipe, a story of lost love and the ingredients of greatness. Can you give us a quick sense of what the story is about?
Yeah, it's sure, absolutely. So it's a coming-of-age story in a sense. It's also a story about the incalculable value of great mentoring. The story is pretty simple. There's a 14-year-old boy that opens up whose life is in trouble. He's just lost his father a few months before the book opens, and his life is a mess. He's getting in fights. His grades are plummeting like a rock. He's kind of spiraling the drain, having a tough time just kind of holding it all together. And he crosses paths with this cook who turns out to be a retired chef of some pretty significant renown. And he goes to work for this guy, and in the course of learning how to operate in the cramped little tiny diner kitchen, he learns lessons about life, about the ingredients of greatness. So the ingredients of greatness is kind of a double entendre. It's the ingredients of great food, but it's also the ingredients of greatness in creating a great life. It's, if you think the Karate Kid meets Master Chef, it's kind of like that. And so that's the story. That's kind of what Charles pitched to me when he first gave me had the idea of the story, and that's the basic plot line.
Now, why is it called The Recipe? Like, is there one single key recipe at the heart of the book?
There is. Yeah, actually there is. There are a lot of recipes in the book. In fact, there's literally a recipe section at the back of the book. where there are 14 recipes that were cooked by characters in the book. And when we get the book out, there's going to be, on our website, we're going to have some videos of Chef Charles actually cooking some of the recipes in the book as demos. So there's lots of recipes in the book. There is one recipe in particular that has emotional significance. And it's a very simple recipe. I don't want to give away any surprises, but it's an important recipe to the book. At the same time, the recipe also talks about, it also really refers to the recipe for a great life, the recipe for a life of meaning and impact. The chef has a set of rules of the kitchen, which later come back as rules for living, phrased in different words. And, again, I don't want to give away any surprises, but they turn out to have a meaning in the military, and they turn out to have a meaning sort of for life in general. And those rules for living, they're kind of the ingredients of greatness, and they are, you could say, the recipe for a great life.
Okay, and that brings me kind of to my next question. The title says it's about loss, love, and the ingredients of greatness. What are the ingredients of greatness?
So, for example, one of them is there's a line from the book when the chef says, like the Buddhists have a saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. People listening to this show right now have probably heard the expression before. It's one of my favorite. How you do anything is how you do everything. And the chef tells the boy to pay attention to the little things. They're in the kitchen cooking, and he's coaching him on some of the fine points. And to the boy, they seem almost ludicrously detailed. Like, why does it matter if I put this over here on the left or over here on the right? Or exactly how I cut these little tiny pieces of vegetable. And the chef says you have to pay attention to the little things. When you do, the big things tend to take care of themselves. Well, the other day somebody asked me, had read that in the book and said, why is that? Why does he say that? And I had to think about that because I wrote the line, but I really wasn't sure what I meant. And, here's what occurred to me. I think about all the greatest things in my life, the biggest blessings, the biggest gifts, the biggest boons in my life, the way the Go-Giver happened. It was something I didn't plan to write, didn't want to write, tried not to write, and it was like a distraction from what I thought was going to be my other career. My wife, my marriage, meeting her was not only an accident, unplanned, but it couldn't have been more inconvenient at the time. All the best things in my life, not one of them happened as a result of my plan. Not one of them happened as a result of my calculation or my strategy. They were all things that the universe dropped in my lap, which I could never have predicted or guessed or strategized in 100 years. Which tells me that I frankly have no control over the big things. The big things, the things that matter, they're beyond me. I can't make those. I can't create those. I can't manage those. I can't control them. What I can control is the little things, is, which verb I use in this sentence. If I say, he walked into the room and sat down. Is walk the right verb? Is sat the right word? Or did he stride into the room? Maybe he strode in the room. He crept into the room. He snuck into the room. He marched into the room. What's the right verb? Did he sit down, or did he collapse in the chair? Or did he slip into the chair? Or did he thump in the chair? I can choose which verb I'm going to use in this sentence. I cannot choose whether this is going to be a great book or not. I can't sit down and say, I'm going to write a great book. I have no idea. Nobody does. All I can do is choose the words in this next sentence I'm going to write. So if you pay attention to the little things and you do your best there, what you discover is that the big things sort themselves out. They sort themselves out around you and drop into your lap.
Wow, that's such a truth. That is such a truth when I think about that. And so Chef, he has another statement. He says, excellence is not greatness. Greatness is excellence plus honor. What does he mean by that?
One of my books, it's called The Red Circle. It's the first book I did with my SEAL friend, Brandon Webb. It's his memoir, basically. And the whole book, The Red Circle, starts from his childhood and goes all the way through his combat experience and his developing a training course for SEALs and training a whole generation of SEAL snipers. And at the very, very end, the last page of the book, we get down to what the book is really all about, which boils down to this: excellence matters. It's the thing that Brandon and I really bond over. Is for both of us, excellence is like one of our highest core values. It always has been for me. It's a core value. When I blogged about this one day a couple of years ago, and a friend commented on my post and said, "Boy, I totally disagree." I was like, "What?" He said, excellence is not, excellence, you can say that matters, but look, Hitler was excellent at what he did. I was like, whoa. I tried to, and I wrote back and said, yeah, that's not really what we're talking about, though. And I kind of explained why, what we meant here and there. But his comments stuck with me, and it came back in this book. And I realized, I think what the chef means by that is that you can do a great job. You can put your all into whatever it is you do in your life, whether whatever your occupation or your avocation or your pursuit or your calling is, whatever you do with your family or your friends or your acquaintances, your colleagues, whatever you do, you can do your best to do a great job. But what matters more is, why are you doing it? When Chef talks about honor, he goes on and talks about having respect for your ingredients, for the carrots and the onions, and for your tools, your knife and your pot and your stove, and for the patrons in the restaurant, people who are going to eat the food you're cooking, and that whatever you're doing, what determines its greatness is not how well you do it only, but who you're doing it for and why you're doing it. That if you transact your activity with the intention of being true to purpose, that starts to get into the realm of honor. I used to be a musician. That was my first career. I played chamber music. I was a cellist. And I have played with musicians who are technically amazing, like technically far better than me, technically proficient, but who just would leave you cold. Because they were excellent. They were excellent at what they did, but it wasn't great. Because they weren't thinking about the audience is going to hear this. They weren't thinking about what the music means to them. They weren't thinking about what did Beethoven or Bach go through in their lives. They weren't thinking about what's the impact of this sound we're making. They were just doing it well. Doing it well by itself, could become a Nazi. Doing it could be Hitler. My friend has a point. Doing something really, really well is great in and of itself, but it's not enough for greatness. Greatness always has to have trajectory. Where is it going? Where is it going to land? Who is it for? Why?
Wow. No, I love how you took like a complete negative situation and turned it into this great positive quote, and then incorporate it into your book.
Took a while. hurt my feelings at first. Yeah.
Once we get over the hurts, it all worked out, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, who did you write this book for?
I wrote this book for, in the generic broad sense, as I said, I wrote it for people who love food and for people who love growth, who love thinking about their lives and about how to make their lives better and how to make their lives more meaningful. That's, I think, who I write every book for. Not the food part necessarily. I'm always writing, I think, for the same audience, which is people who, who was it that talked about the unexamined life? Was that Emerson, Thoreau, somebody?
Yeah.
I write for people who are in love with the examination of life, who don't just want to go through the motions of their lives, but who want to sort of dig in deep and try to make their lives as meaningful and as rich as possible. So there's always that, I guess, sort of that theme of self-development and growth in it. In a selfish sense, I wrote the book for me. I mean, I love to cook. So I wrote the book for my wife. She loves to cook.
I'm sure she's thrilled that you love cooking with her now more, huh? Now that you've experimented and went through the whole process of learning.
It's always been a key part of our relationship. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, what do you want people to walk away from after they've read this book?
I want them to walk away with a desire to tell their friends they have to read it.
I think that's always the desire.
What I want, first and foremost, as I want them I want it to touch them. I want it to touch people's heart. I want people to, when people write me and tell me that they cried while they were reading it, that's awesome. I love hearing that. I want people to walk away feeling like it has enriched their lives and given them places where they can make an improvement themselves, where they can take something Owen, the boy, learned, or the chef learned, because everybody learns in this book, and see where it is making their own lives larger. That's what I would love to see people take. How did this book make my life larger?
Wow. So you said people were crying. Why did you make loss a central part of the book? And what is it that brings out such emotional responses when people do read the book?
Yeah, two different questions, really. I mean, why loss is in the book? I mean, that was, in a superficial sense, it was just part of the sort of the plot setup that Charles sent me, and it's people ask if it's autobiographical. It is in many ways, but not in this way. Charles's father did not die when he was a young boy of 14. He did die, recently, and he lost both his parents in the last few years. But his mother happily was able to read the book in manuscript before she passed on. But it was the idea that he had for the story. For me, though, loss is such a central part of life. In The Go-Giver, nobody dies, but in the Go-Giver Leader, somebody does. In fact, more than one person does, and it's in part that's because that's a reflection of death that I've experienced in my own life, and in a sense, everything that I write is reflects my life, and that's true, I think, for every writer. So even if I write somebody else's memoir, yes, it's about their life, but it's also behind the lines. It's also about my life, and people have died in my life. I lost a child once many years ago. I've lost both my parents. My sister, my wife has lost a brother. I've felt that sting, and it's been a very painful, of course, but also meaningful and important part of my life. So it just feels like an important part of the story. It feels like it's an essential piece of if there weren't loss, then the rest of this story wouldn't happen. Owen wouldn't grow the way he does. And there was a second part to your question. Oh yeah, why is it emotionally touching? Why are people telling me that they're moved by the book? I think for me, when I write a story like this, I've got to fall in love with the characters. Even in a parable. This book is sort of a parable, sort of a novel, halfway between the two. It's a little more novelish than The Go-Giver, which is a little more fable-ish. But even in The Go-Giver, in any of these books, these people have to become real for me. They do. They become very real. I become very attached to them. I have to fall in love with them, and I do. I love this kid. He could be my kid. And so I think that the only way a reader is going to read this book and be moved by it is if I'm moved by it while I'm writing. And I cried a bunch of times writing the book. I cry now when I go back and read it. It's just like, it's real.
Wow, dude. I'm excited about the book. I'm excited about the release. And it was great to talk to you again. So I want to put a call to action out to our audience just so they can look for it. But the book is The Recipe. It comes out October 17th, and it is available now for pre-order on Amazon and all other booksellers. So for more information on the book and John's other books, you can go to johndavidmann.com/books. The authors are also running a pre-release special offer, which you can find on his site at owensrecipes.com. John, is there anything else that you want to leave our audience with before we part ways?
I guess just I would love to hear from them. I would say this: if you do read this book and you have any comments about it, good, bad, ugly, in between, I'd love to hear it. I love hearing from readers. It really is. It's meant to be a conversation, a dialogue, not just a one-way street. So, if you write to my website, I'm the guy that'll read that email.
Awesome. John, it was so great to talk to you again. Great to catch up with you. Welcome to the world of self-publishing.
Hey, thank you very much. What do you know? Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, but I'm sure we'll see you back in the throes of the New York Times bestsellers once again very soon.
Yeah, I'll straddle two worlds for a while. That'll be fun.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for being on a guest again.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I love what you do.